From the earliest days of the United States, Christian leaders have fundamentally shaped American communities, influenced national values, and guided public life in countless ways. Their influence can be seen clearly in education systems across the country, in major social reform movements, and in ongoing moral debates about justice and human dignity. But legacy is never simple or one-dimensional. It's always complicated by both positive contributions and problematic failures. So what has Christian leadership truly left behind in America? And how should that complex legacy be understood and evaluated today? Legacy isn't just about documenting the past and what happened historically. It's fundamentally about what continues to actively influence the present and shape the future. Christian leaders in America have served in incredibly diverse roles, as pastors caring for congregations, as reformers challenging injustice, as educators building institutions, and as public voices speaking on moral issues. They've worked in local communities and on national stages. They've led institutions and grassroots movements. So we're forced to ask, is their legacy best measured by the institutions they built that still exist today? By the ideas they popularized that still shape American thinking? Or by the lasting impact on society that might be invisible but profound? Because those different measures could lead to very different conclusions about what Christian leadership has accomplished. In early American history, many Christian leaders contributed enormously to building foundational institutions that shaped the developing nation. They established schools at every level, from basic literacy programs to prestigious universities like Harvard, Yale, and Princeton that started as religious institutions. They created charitable organizations serving the poor, the sick, and the vulnerable. They built hospitals where none existed. Faith often explicitly shaped moral teaching in communities and provided structure for social organization in a young, chaotic nation. Proverbs 14:34 says, "Righteousness exalts a nation," which early leaders quoted frequently. So we have to ask, did Christian leadership during America's founding genuinely shape the nation's moral identity from the ground up? Did they create American values? Or did they primarily reflect moral ideas that were already present in broader culture, just giving them religious expression and institutional form? That distinction matters for understanding how much credit Christian leadership deserves for American ideals. End slavery was heavily driven by Christian activists and churches who saw slavery as fundamentally sinful. Civil rights advocacy in the 20th century was led primarily by black churches and ministers who framed racial justice in biblical terms. Education and healthcare initiatives often started with Christian organizations before government programs existed. Some of these leaders, like Martin Luther King Jr., were widely recognized and celebrated. Others worked quietly behind the scenes, never seeking public recognition. But here's the complicated question. How did Christian faith actually influence the pursuit of justice in these movements? Did it provide the moral foundation and motivation that made reform possible? And where did Christian leadership fall short? Where did churches defend slavery, oppose civil rights, or maintain unjust systems? Because Christian leaders were on both sides of almost every major debate, which complicates any simple narrative about Christianity and justice. In the 20th century, Christian leadership dramatically expanded its reach into mass media and national public conversations. Evangelists like Billy Graham filled stadiums with tens of thousands. Pastors and religious figures reached millions through radio broadcasts, then television programs, and now digital platforms. Large public gatherings demonstrated Christianity's cultural power. Religious voices became regular participants in debates about politics, morality, and national direction. Matthew 5:16 says, "Let your light shine before others," which leaders interpreted as calling for public visibility. So did this increased visibility and media presence genuinely strengthen Christianity's message by reaching more people more effectively? Or did it fundamentally change how Christian leadership was perceived, making it more about celebrity, entertainment, and political influence than spiritual guidance? Because scale changes things. Leadership that works beautifully in a local congregation might become something different entirely when broadcast to millions. No legacy in history is without significant complexity and contradiction. Christian leadership in America has also faced substantial and legitimate criticism related to several major issues. Deep political involvement that sometimes made churches indistinguishable from partisan political organizations. Failures of institutional accountability when scandals involving abuse, financial corruption, or moral hypocrisy went unchecked. Cultural influence that maintained unjust systems, defending slavery, opposing women's rights, marginalizing LGBTQ individuals. These aren't minor footnotes. They're central to understanding the full legacy. So we're forced to ask, how should history actually balance the positive influence Christian leadership has had, building institutions, serving communities, advocating for justice, with the responsibility for harm caused by supporting injustice, covering up abuse, or wielding power without accountability? Can we celebrate contributions while honestly acknowledging failures? Or does acknowledging failures somehow minimize the good that was done? These aren't easy questions to answer. Today, Christian leadership in America looks dramatically different than it did even 50 years ago, let alone at the nation's founding. More diverse voices are emerging and being heard. Women leaders, leaders of color, younger leaders who bring different perspectives. Leadership styles are actively evolving away from authoritarian models toward more collaborative and servant-oriented approaches. Communities are fundamentally redefining what authority means and how it should function in churches. The internet and social media have democratized who can teach and lead. Matthew 20:26 quotes Jesus saying, "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant," emphasizing servant leadership over domination. So is modern Christian leadership genuinely continuing the legacy of past leaders, building on their foundation while learning from their mistakes? Or is it reshaping that legacy entirely, creating something so different that continuity is questionable? Both things might be happening simultaneously in different parts of American Christianity. Several crucial factors: trust and transparency, being honest about failures, maintaining financial accountability, creating structures that prevent abuse. Cultural engagement, finding ways to speak to contemporary issues without either capitulating to culture or withdrawing into irrelevance. Faithfulness to core beliefs, maintaining theological integrity while adapting methods and approaches. Leadership in the 21st century can't be just about authority and having the right to tell people what to do. It has to be about genuine connection with communities and taking responsibility for impact. What kind of leadership will actually define the next generation of American Christianity? Will it look like megachurch pastors with massive platforms? Will it be decentralized networks of local leaders? Will it come from outside traditional structures entirely? We don't know yet because it's still forming, but the choices being made now will shape Christianity's influence on America for decades to come. Let me leave you with some big questions to wrestle with. What is the true legacy of Christian leadership in America when you account for both significant contributions and serious failures? Has Christian leadership shaped the nation more than it has been shaped by American culture and politics? Can you even separate those influences? And how will future leaders build on the legacy they've inherited, learning from both successes and mistakes? Or potentially redefine that legacy so completely that it becomes something new? These questions don't have simple answers, but they're worth asking honestly. The story of Christian leadership in America is absolutely still unfolding in real time. We're living through it right now. It's a legacy of enormous influence, of significant challenges and failures, and of constant transformation as each generation reinterprets what faithful leadership means. That legacy continues to shape the nation in both visible and invisible ways that affect millions of Americans, whether they're religious or not. Understanding that history helps us think more clearly about leadership and faith today. This is the Scholar's Ledger, where history, faith, and power are revealed. Subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and join us in the search for truth.